She's forging her own path by taking a sledgehammer to people's preconceptions of genre and has made her name in New York City by performing at iconic venues like Bowery Electric and New York Pride. You may know her from her Wannabe remix. Please welcome Petra to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing so good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Excited to have you on, learn more about your music, how you got into it, everything like that.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Yeah. And so I guess like just hopping right into it, was there anything that really like tipped you off that music was something that you wanted to go into, or what was your first like aha moment with music?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I just growing up I wasn't good at anything. Like I would try to do all the sports teams. I would like try to do the gymnastics situation. And I just didn't find my thing. And my parents were always really supportive, so they were like, "Don't worry, we'll figure it out." And then one day, my dad, I think somebody was getting rid of this like old piano, this old upright piano, and he brought it home, and I was like, "Oh, look, a little kid piano, an instrument, like how exciting!" And I started playing it, and obviously I wasn't like suddenly just good, but my dad was like, "You want to learn a song?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll learn a song." And I remember he taught me "Let It Be" by the Beatles, and I don't know, like I think something clicked there, and I started playing every single day, and I just got obsessed with it. And I was actually good at that. My parents were like, "Okay, she's good." I also was like really, really shy, so it was kind of one of those things that I could like hide away and just practice my piano and didn't really have to interact with people. So that's kind of like was my vice, and then it like grew into um, playing R&B music, playing pop music, and then eventually wanting to write. And that's kind of where I started getting like my self-confidence and my voice and being a little less shy. And suddenly I found myself on a stage. So, crazy how things change.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. I think it's great that your parents were so supportive of like learning songs on piano because I feel like with almost any instrument that's like a great way to like learn it rather than go through scales or whatever, or, like
Yeah,
classical music, like learn songs that you actually like and like listen
I
to on a daily
agree.
basis.
You really can't force anyone to love an instrument, especially by forcing them to do things they don't want. Like you have to want it. So I did start learning classical music, but it wasn't because my parents were like, "You're gonna take piano classes
Yeah.
and you're gonna be good at this and you're gonna study Beethoven." It was like, I had like the freedom to kind of just do what I wanted, and I think that's why I ended up wanting to do those things.
Yeah. And so I guess at what point after that was it like what at what point did you learn that like music could be a career, or with trying out all these things, was there anything else you were like planning on doing for a career beforehand?
I never had any idea of anything else I wanted to do for sure. That's a good, like I feel like in the music industry you have to have this sense of like delusion, like a healthy sense of
Yeah,
delusion.
definitely. Definitely.
So I always just kind of like I was like, I'm gonna be a pop star. Like I'm gonna be a pop star. And everyone was like, "Sure you are." And mind you, I grew up not in New York City. Like in New York City, I think if you say that, people are like, "Okay, cool, be a pop star." But back where I'm from, it was like unheard of. What are you talking about? So yeah, I had a healthy sense of delusion, and thankfully my parents lifted me up and didn't squash it, which I think is key here, because I just knew I wanted to not live a normal life. I don't know how to say that in a different way. I was like, I don't want to follow the same things that everyone else does. I don't want to like go to school and then like get married and like get a job and just live like a mediocre life. Not saying that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but for
Just for
me,
you in particular, it
I
wasn't what you
needed
wanted to do. Yeah.
chaos. Like I needed chaos. And most people like my way of life is probably just awful to them, but I needed chaos, I need adventure, I need change, and I need to have freedom to do what I want and say what I want, and I feel like that's kind of what drew me to music and like creating and yeah. So that's my long-winded story.
Yeah, definitely. I'm in a similar boat where like I know that I don't want like a 9 to 5 like go to an office kind of thing. I whether it's music, this, anything, like I want something where it's like at least to some degree self-employed. Like I'm
Yeah.
doing, what I want when I want, and there's no like hard schedule to it. I can make my own deadlines and whatnot, but there's no hard in and out times. And I mean, you mentioned like New York City, it's a huge music city where everyone's it feels like trying to be a pop star, make it in music or whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
And when you're 16, you move from Detroit to New York City.
Yeah.
What was that like, or like what maybe it was the parents, what gave you an inclination to like do that and try to make the dream come true?
Well, I just like knew I couldn't do it back where I was. I also
Hmm.
feel like I was starting to sense kind of like this um I people were talking about me. They were looking at me like because I was like this girl with like giant dreams and I was doing like dressing crazy and um I think part of it was that my parents saw that and they were like, okay, we don't want her to feel like she can't do something because you are a product of your environment. Like if you surround yourself with people who tell you you're crazy, um, at some point, especially when you're young, you might start to listen to them, you know? So I think I just like had my eye on the prize. My parents knew that I was responsible and they knew that I was dedicated and that this was something I really wanted. It wasn't just a phase. You know, I've been dedicated for my entire life. So they were like, you know what? Let's let her go to New York. Um, I guess like when I first got there, it was, you know what? If I were to do the same thing now, I think I would be terrified because like we're adults, like we're so exposed to the real world and like the
Yeah.
chaos of it. We're like, oh my God, you know, now I'm home at 9:30 p.m. because I'm like, I'm scared to be alone on the street at
Yeah,
night.
it's
Back
crazy
then,
for parents to be like, yeah, my 16-year-old can go move off to New York City on
but
their
when you're
own.
16, you're delusional. Like I was like, I had that
Yeah.
delusion. So I was
Yeah.
like, fine. So I feel like that's maybe what made it so easy for me is that I was so determined to build a life and I had those like rose-colored glasses on. And I think it's a good thing. Like I'm not, you know, I think that's what got me through because I do remember it being such a culture shock and, you know, being going from small town, living at home, having home cooked meals, you know, being able to have someone else do your laundry, being able to grocery shop, like you don't grocery shop, somebody does it for you, to then suddenly having to like do all those things because you're on your own. You know, it's a little
Yeah. And in New
sudden.
York City especially, which is like
Yes,
it's like the city. It's like I mean, the it's
chaos.
so everything's up to like the 10th degree in there.
Yeah, no, you're
And
absolutely right.
and especially for like the music industry, I mean, I was reading your, I think it was a Spotify bio where you mentioned this, like the especially the business side, but most of the music industry is pretty male dominated. What tips or advice would you give to other like young female artists trying to make it in the music industry?
Yeah. Um, I would say the thing for me that I always kept like the voice in my shoulder was like you're no different than them. Like don't act different. Like just go in and assert your position. Go in and say what you want. Go in and ask for what you want. And this is not something that comes naturally to me. Even to this day, you know, I think like the way that girls and boys are raised is very differently. Like I just remember always you know, having the feeling of like, oh, don't, you know, you don't ever want to inconvenience someone. Like you don't want to, you know, ask for some asking for something that's too much is rude. Like don't do any of those things. And I feel like what I witnessed, like a lot of the guys doing would be my same age, walk in and demand, hey, I want this, this, and this. This is, you know, what I want. And they would get it. And I was like, well, I could learn something from that. So I went, you know, I like walked in, I was like, okay, this is what I want. Here's my boundaries. You know, just not being afraid to speak up. And I think the more you do it, it's like a muscle. Like the more you do it, the easier it gets. So I guess my advice would be to ignore all of the little voices in your head saying like, "Oh, girl, you know, girls shouldn't be too rude. Girls should be polite." Like ignore that. Like just go and ask for what you want and don't be afraid to draw boundaries. Don't be afraid to get up and walk out if you're uncomfortable. I think yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it's not going to be hard. Like there's going to be
Yeah, yeah.
situations, but I think that's kind of like what always protected me. Um, yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's hard being a girl when you're the only one in the room, you know, and it's easy to feel uncomfortable. But I guess just forging your path is the key here.
Hey, it's Heroek, and this episode is sponsored by me. Well, kind of. If you don't know, I recently started a clothing line called Quest Clothing, which you can shop right now. I'll leave some pictures here on the screen, but we got the core collection, which is just this sleek black and white design on a bunch of products. And then we also have some more like merch style stuff with cover arts for my songs and things like that. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and I'm really excited that I now have it. And so expect a lot more collections, a lot more designs coming out soon. I'll leave a link to it down below, and if you want to stay up to date with any new releases or anything like that, follow at Shop Quest Clothing on Instagram. So go get cool designs like this, or even this, and you'll be helping me support all of this, the podcast, the music, everything. Plus, it just looks cool. We even got this nice big letter design on the back. Look at that. Look how cool that looks. So head to the link in the description to get yourself some Quest clothing, and make sure to follow at Shop Quest Clothing on Instagram for updates with new collections and stuff like that. And now, back to the episode. I want to get into now sort of like a weird one-off question. What
Sure.
is it about the color red that like you enjoy or that speaks to you? Because we started logging on here and you enjoyed my background. You're like, it's my favorite color. I was
Yeah.
like listening to your music and it seems like there's red everywhere. Like, what
Yeah.
is it about red in specific that just you enjoy?
Um, First of all, I just always wanted red hair growing up. And I think the reason I was drawn to it is because it's such a bold and powerful color. Like truly, like
Yeah.
red signifies power, and boldness, and those are things I always aspired to have, like to be powerful and bold. So I feel like it's kind of like the facade, you know. Um, I turned in my brown hair for the red because like this makes me get into that place. I don't know. Like I really
Yeah.
just I love red.
No,
I
it's fine. Like anyone who knows me personally knows like I say it all the time. Like black and red together is my favorite color combo. I think it looks the coolest, and like I don't have any like specific reason why. It just to me looks the coolest, or has the coolest like vibe and aesthetic, and so yeah.
100%.
And with it being, I'm sure hard in New York City in the music industry to sort of make a name and grow your career. What has kept you going through that, or has there been any moments that you sort of like second guessed or questioned the career?
I mean, I think yes, definitely we have had those moments, but not because I didn't like it, or feel like it wasn't my calling. It's just hard. Like you have those moments where you're like, why am I doing this? Like either you're broke and you have to like it's like a constant investment into your career, constant uphill battle it feels like sometimes. But I think that looking back and seeing where you've come from is so important. It's very easy for me to be like, oh, I want to be doing this. I should be doing this. There's all these things I need to do, and then forget to like look back and say, oh, well, look at how far I've come. I also think at this point, like the number one and maybe only reason I still do what I do is because I like the fans, like going onto my Discord and just seeing people like bonding over my songs and forming friendships, or going online and just seeing that comment saying, my son watched this and, you gave him the confidence to not be afraid to be himself at school, or, these are like people just sharing their stories, I guess. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, now I know why I do this. Because the music industry will make you jaded if you let it, and I just have to refuse that tendency. Because getting back to why I started this, it was for the mission, for the message, for the power that music has. And the business side is just, I guess, an unfortunate thing that comes along with it.
It's yeah, no, definitely. I was just recording an episode with another artist, and he was like talking about like the emails and the scheduling, and I was like, yeah, the business side, and he was like, yeah, no, the soul crushing side. I was like, yeah, no, I feel that. It's hard because as like creative people, that's the part we don't want to have to do. It's like
Yeah,
we
like you
want
think
just
about
the
numbers and
creation.
analytics, like please just like choke me. Like I don't care, like what are the real people saying? Like I just want to I go by how I feel. I don't go by numbers. So whenever
Yeah.
someone's trying to throw numbers on me, I'm like, stop talking to me.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm wondering, like, with, I mean, you mentioned like the interaction and the stories and the community you've built amongst fans. Do you feel that at the live shows that you've performed?
Yeah, definitely. I always say we're tiny but mighty little community. We're growing. So I think the coolest thing about this last summer was I did do a Pride tour circuit, and the reason that I went to these specific cities was because my fans requested me to. It wasn't just like I'm going here and I'm gonna skip this city. I mean, I literally reached out to any person that commented, like, "Oh, come to, like any tiny city."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay, cool." And I would reach out to their local Pride, and I would either try to get on or I would get invited to do it. And so like it was cool to be able to go and meet these people in real life. So to answer your question, yes, seeing people sing your song, even if it's like three people in the front row, you're like, "Hey, I know you," like
Yeah.
we're friends. So that was really cool.
I really like that you were focused on the fans and like going to the requested cities because I feel like I mean I'm sure there's some level of that with all the other bands and artists out there, but to some degree it also just feels like okay, there are some like big cities that are on almost like required for tours. It's like, okay, we're gonna go to Los Angeles, New York, blah 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 blah, blah. And it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's definitely appreciated that you're focusing on these smaller cities, smaller markets because you have fans there. And I think that at the end of the day, it is about the where the fans are, the fan base, and not like the city or the music
Yeah.
scene that's there. And
Yeah.
so. And now getting into a bit into the like music and creative process a bit when you're coming up with songs, coming up with music, what does your creative process look like and about how long would you say it takes you to like make a song start to finish?
So I'm like I'm telling you, everything goes by feeling. Like to
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
music speaks to the lyrics. So what I mean by that is like when I hear a bass line or I hear a drum, um, or get inspired by any of those things, then it informs what the lyrics are. Like I feel through the sonnet.
Yeah.
I don't write poetry first, is what I'm trying to say. It's very hard for me to do that. So what I tend to do is come up with like a line or something catchy that goes along with this like bass line I can't get out of my head or this like rhythm or this guitar, and that's usually forms a whole song or at least the song idea. um so yeah, lately I've been challenging myself to try to like be more intentional with like what I'm writing about. um so I'll, like, come up with like the song title first and then start writing like different ideas and concepts that could come with it. But I'm really just trying to write about things that we are talking about in my community, like on Discord and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'm really trying to like give them what they deserve rather than just random melodies I come up with in my head that have nothing to do with anything. So yeah, I guess that's kind of like the two different ways I'm working. It can take me a week or it can take me like literally 4 months to write a song. It kind of just depends on what the song needs.
On yeah. Yeah.
Every song's a
On feeling.
journey.
Yeah, I definitely get that. And with, I mean, maybe some like level of inspiration. You mentioned like getting some inspiration from the fans or
Yes.
keeping a pulse of what they want. Is it mostly that, or are there any like artists and bands that you take inspiration from as well?
I mean, I definitely take inspiration from other artists, but I actually, when I sit down to write, I'm never like, oh, I want to do a song like this
Yeah.
person, this song. Um, I know that's a lot of people's kind of creative process, and I find it so hard to find like references because, like you said, I like to write about the experiences that I have or experiences that my fans or friends or family have. So I tend to like I tend to just write off of like a melody and however I feel. And it's so funny because every producer I've ever worked with is like, well, can I have a reference track? And like a reference track is like a
Yeah.
song. For anybody that doesn't know, it's like, oh, a track that you reference like the style or the sound of it or the mixing levels. And I'm always like, I don't know. And I make them all so mad because I'm like, I don't have a reference track. I'm sorry. I can
Yeah.
like try to find one, but it's like I don't know. I never do.
Yeah, I think I mean I've had a couple times where I'll like hear a song and get inspired by that, so like the reference track is kind of built in. But there are plenty of times, kind of like you're explaining, where I like think of an idea or think of a song, and then like I'll be working with an artist who's like, okay, what kind of vocals do you want in, or like what's the general like sound you're going for? And I'm like, okay, give me a minute to like look through
Yeah,
songs and like try to find one to like
I
match the
know.
vibe.
And trying to describe sound is so challenging. I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
Like it's like it's very like open, but like also like like feathers and like blue. Like it's like you there's no adjectives to
It's
describe.
just gibberish, and then like even when you try to get like the sound, you just look insane like making sounds. You're like I want to boom boom, and like it's
Like a
you just can't
swelling.
do it.
I know exactly. That's
Yeah.
that's my entire life, and I'm sure I drive a lot of people crazy with that. But
Are you a music artist trying to find a way to get your music on as many streaming platforms as possible? Then check out DistroKid. DistroKid is a super user-friendly and super easy-to-use service that will make your music available in stores like Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Amazon Music, YouTube, Snapchat, everything. Everything you could imagine, it's available. People will even be able to add your songs into their Instagram stories. DistroKid helps you with the distribution, monetization, and promotion of all of your music. Use the link in the description of this video for 7% off any DistroKid package you want. Pick from musician packages designed to help artists get their own music out there, or even get a label package where you can manage up to 100 artists from one profile. So that's more for like managers, labels, and you can also get the musician package that I mentioned earlier, which is more for artists, producers, things like that. It's super easy, and you can get 7% off any package right now with the link in the description of this video. So once again, if you're looking for a way to get your music on as many streaming platforms as possible, I'm talking any platform you can think of, get DistroKid and get 7% off right now with the link in the description. Back to the program. And so if there's someone who like hasn't really heard your sound or your music, is there a song you would recommend as like a first listen for Paytra, or like a way to get into Paytra?
oh man, if you like more like hip hop, rap pop, like a more like a top 50, top 40, what am I saying? Top 40 sound, I would probably recommend Villain Era or Slay. Those definitely have like a more gritty, like rappy hip hop influence. But if you're looking for more like rock or kind of like the protest music, which I do a lot of, I would say my new song "World's About to Get Crazy" or motherfucking Misfit American Anthem. Those are two of the legend tracks that has definitely introduced me to a lot of people who love me and hate me. Because you have an opinion about those tracks. Um,
Yeah, those are like
so
the polarizing tracks. Yeah.
yeah, I mean it's not. It's like I just say what's on my mind, and you either vibe with it or not. And if you want a good laugh, you can always go to my video comments and see what the people are saying.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean I guess like with you just mentioned it, World's About to Get Crazy. That's your latest release. What else can you tell us about like the song itself, what went into it, meaning, and anything you want to talk about that song?
Yeah. So I mean, the song wasn't even an idea or a thought or part of the plan. Like I have so many songs written that were supposed to come before it. And I think one day I just was sitting down and I was just frustrated about where we're at as a society. Obviously, the US election is upon us, and it's a very polarizing time, a lot of emotions. So I simply wrote from a place of that, a place of like fear and anxiety and like anger, as you can probably hear in the track. But I didn't want it to be all negative. Like I wanted it to have that sense of hope and community because I think the worst thing ever is being upset about something and then feeling like you're the only person in the world that cares. So just again, coming back to the sense of like community and hope, but sharing some of my concerns, and that's kind of how the song was born. The lyrics are obviously very targeted, and I fully expected to go into this with having a polarizing effect. Um, and I put it out into the world because to me, art is controversial at times and it speaks to what's going on. And trying to avoid political topics or social topics as an artist that cares about them so much is pretty much like not part of like out of the question for me. So I'm
Yeah.
like, you know what? People are gonna either like me or hate me, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. So that's how the song came out. And then I did put an EP together that's also titled World's About to Get Crazy that includes some of my more protest songs in them. And yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. And then another super popular song of yours, Wannabe Remix, is one
Oh
of
my
your
gosh.
most
Yes.
popular. Did you have like a feeling that it was something special when you were making it, or did it just take you by surprise?
Literally, I must have been like 16 when I recorded that. So very interesting to me that it's like doing so well. But I guess you know what? That just like explains art. Like it's like part of we look back in a scrapbook. I'm like, oh, I remember that. It was a collaboration. It was not my idea. I mean, I wrote the remix part of it, but it was like, oh, we should like do a remix of this song, and you could like, rewrite parts of it. And I was like, okay, cool. And I just went in the booth and we did it in a day and put it out into the world. And it's just wild to me that 10 years down the line or whatever it's been, it's still, reaching so many people. Um, yeah, it's wild to me.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
how you found me?
That's the first song of yours that I heard.
So
I'm trying
funny.
to remember of like the first time I heard Paytra. I think it was just either on it was definitely on social media somewhere, but I can't remember if it was like
Yes,
a some kind of like festival lineup or like your music specifically. But
that's
once I like started learning about you and reaching out about coming on here and like listening to your music,
yeah.
that was the first one I went to. I
So,
also listened to Glitter Bomb, Villain Era, which you mentioned before,
yeah.
which I really like.
Oh,
So yeah.
thank you. Yeah, it's just funny because it's like all part of our journey as artists. Like you look back at a song, to me that doesn't represent me anymore at all. But I remember when it did, and I think that's kind of what's so cool about the
Yeah.
connection music
And
has.
it's somehow always like I don't want to say the low effort, but some like the ones that just come together super quick and you just like toss out there that are the ones
Yeah.
that blow
I mean, I'm
out,
proud of it.
blow
I'm
up.
not, I'm not speaking
Yeah.
down on it at all. I just think it's so funny that something I did as like a little kid in my mind, I'm like, I mean, I'm glad people like it. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And so with your career in general, is there any like specific goal you have in mind or a level you want to reach?
Yeah. I mean, I think every artist has that like big aspiration to be on a stage with like a room full of people who are cheering your name and being like number one on the charts and all of that. And these are goals of mine for sure. Like I would love nothing more than to tour the world and be able to like, just get to that level. But I think like the goal that kind of supersedes all of it is the community. And I never knew how important it was to me until it started forming. Like I really just want to continue creating a space where people are um, included. And I don't just mean, oh, you can come to this server or you can come on my page, but like the music represents such a diverse subset of
Yeah.
the world, you know? I think like a lot of the songs out are bops. I love it. I love where pop music is right now. Trust me, it's really great. We have a lot of talented artists charting, but I feel like a lot of them talk about like love and like going out and like, they're happy and they're about dancing and um love that. But I want to create music that represents the other side of things or people who don't feel like they fit into that genre. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I really would love to keep building this community and see where it takes all of us. And it's cool to be able to like do it together. and have them
Yeah.
cheering me on. So
Yeah, totally. I think fans are a huge part of any artist or band's career, and it's really what keeps them
yeah,
going.
and when you look at
Like at the end of the day, those are the ones that are going to spend money on you or like get money going to you in a way to support your career and keep you
and they
going.
care more than anyone. Like when you look at people as numbers, which social media kind of encourages you to do, like, oh, 30,000, number 2,000, number three. That's different than when you learn their names and you talk to them and like they're part of your journey. Like I think so many people miss that opportunity because the entire industry is so obsessed with numbers. And both are important. Like in order to be successful, you need numbers, but like you can't forget about the faces and the people and
Yeah.
the stories.
And
Um,
I think a lot of sorry to cut you off,
I don't
but
know.
with the numbers things, it kind of like it's been so normalized that it almost like takes away the scale of numbers or the scale of
Yeah,
people. People are like, oh, this didn't really do as well. It only got like 500 views on social media. I was like, but imagine like you're like walking down the street and 500 people look at you. Like that's a
yeah,
big crowd. That's a lot of people that
right.
like the numbers just now make feel so small.
100%. And it takes out the joy. Like if you are so obsessed with hitting 1 million or 2 million that you forget about the 500 faces or the 500 people that you changed their life or that they connect with your music in such a way that it's influenced who they are. Because I remember those artists growing up that literally influenced who I am and the decisions I make, like the music did. If you ignore those people who feel that towards you, I feel like the entire joy of artistry is like so easy to just lose, like
Yeah.
we're focused
What
on,
are you doing it for at that
yeah, but
point?
like, what about this person that you just changed their whole life? Like, are you just gonna ignore that? It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Hey, if you're like me and you're interested in the YouTube or creator space, you should check out The Published Press. The Published Press is a completely free newsletter founded by YouTubers Colin and Samir. They host their own podcast talking to some of YouTube's largest creators. They've edited some of the best content I've seen on YouTube, and now they're sharing their knowledge about the YouTube space with you for free. The Published Press comes out 3 times a week, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, with everything going on with their favorite creators and platforms. And like I said, it's completely free. Just enter your email address to receive the Published Press whenever it comes out, and that's it. So, what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below, sign up to the Published Press, and get all the info you need on the industry. For a couple like big hypotheticals or like dream scenarios to slowly wrap things up, like if you could make a song with any artist or band in the world, who would you want to collaborate with?
This is so hard. Like legacy artists that have just been around for ages and everyone's obsessed with. Alicia Keys is definitely one of my most influential artists of my time. Her albums are the reason I started playing piano and then singing her music. Like just Alicia, nobody else. I got all of Alicia's books and learned her music. So she's definitely somebody that I'd like to like say thank you to and like be on a song with. And I mean, Eminem, I have Alicia on my wall here. I have Eminem on my wall. Eminem is like one of my biggest inspirations. I think he is a genius when it comes to lyricism. And I
Definitely.
draw a lot of influence in the way that I approach lyrics and like the wittiness and like the jokes and like the humor he puts into, I love that. Beyonce, grew up with her. Those are my probably top three. And then, I mean, artists that are today, like, you know, on the charts, I would say, um, I really like Sabrina. I think she's Sabrina Carpenter. She's fun. And I think our brands are like so opposite that it'd be interesting to do a song together. Um, yeah. And I mean, I think Taylor Swift is like a force to be reckoned with too. Like I have done interviews and everyone's like, "Are you a Swiftie?" And I was like, "You know what? I have never been like deep into her albums. Like I really haven't. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like
Yeah.
I have. But what I will say is that I admire how much of a role model she's been for young girls. And I specifically like that going back to the fans, she truly did during her journey take time to like care about the stories of her fans and put them first. And I feel like that's why she's so successful. So
Yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't want to be on a song with Taylor Swift at this point, you know?
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. I feel like every person to some degree would want to. Like it's
Absolutely.
either you're a fan of her or you're not really a fan of her, but know that like it would do
Or you're a
numbers and you
hater.
want
There's a lot
yeah.
of Swift haters. And I'm like, oh, you're so original. You hate her for no reason, you know? You don't have to like her music, but you gotta like, come on, like just respect
Yeah.
it. You know,
Yeah.
she's
I'm definitely in like a middle ground where like
yeah.
I like her music. I listen to it. I actually have a vinyl of her
Oh,
album
nice.
Reputation right over there. But like I wouldn't.
Reputation was my favorite album of hers, to be fair.
Same here. And I feel like that's almost like a hot take because all the Swifties like don't like that album because it's not like the like pop or like soft indie stuff
Right,
and it's
right.
like the one thing that really is different from everything else she does and I'm like, yeah, that's my kind of music. That's what I like. But
So, I
yeah.
mean, hate her if you want, but she's doing better than most of us, so
Yeah, yeah.
all her
And
haters.
I feel like you and Taylor Swift on like a Reputation sounding song would be insane.
So fun. I'm sure
And
she's awesome to work with.
yeah, I'm sure. And in a similar vein, do you have like a bucket list of like shows like venues or festivals that you would want to do shows
Oh my
at?
God. I mean, I would love Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
I mean, that would just be kind of like iconic because it's something I always passed every single day as a little girl. Like, there's Madison Square Garden, so being able to do that would be awesome. But like honestly, like that's I want to be in a room. I don't care which room it is. I just want to be in a room filled with people who are singing my song at one point. It doesn't need to be huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just think that is so cool and I am aiming to get to in the next year. So,
Yeah. And there's
yep.
definitely something special about those smaller I mean, all these big artists
Yes.
like take off and once they're big, everyone's like, "Oh, I wish I could have seen them at these smaller shows." And
Yeah, they're
there's
so
inherently
fun.
something like intimate and cool about them.
Yeah, and then you get to go out after and talk to people. Like I definitely love the venues here in New York. I just want to get to the point where I can be in a place where everybody in the room knows me, and like I wish I could just take everyone online and throw them in a room and like
Yeah.
perform for
It's
them.
a room of like Paytra fans and
Yes,
and that's it.
yes, like all my Discord. It just so happens that they're spread out. But one day,
Yeah. Yeah. One day you'll get some city or some area where they're close enough that you can
everybody, we're gonna meet in Idaho. Like.
is Idaho a big market for Paytra fans?
Idaho, home of the potatoes. Everybody, let's go. French fries on me.
Perfect. Fresh off the farms.
Exactly.
And like looking at your own music and looking back at your discography, is there a song of yours that's your favorite just like to listen to or in general?
That's a good question. You know what? I hate listening to my own music at this point because I've heard it so much, but I will speak on what I like to perform. I really like to perform Slay. And Slay is gonna, trust me, Slay's coming back. She took a back seat because World's About to Get Crazy came and took over. But Slay's on all platforms. But I am going to be like re-releasing it on an EP in the future. And I feel like that song is so fun on stage. The energy change when I perform it is crazy. Like, it's just such a fun song. I feel like it deserves another go around. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna push that one.
Yeah, yeah, as you should. And I guess like hinting in this upcoming project that Slay might reappear on, what's next for you or what's upcoming
Yeah,
for Petra?
I want to just create some bangers, like some like just energy. I want to write about stuff that's like I want it to be intense. I want it to be like something that people can like scream along to and feel heard. So I'm like making it my mission right now to write 10 bangers, like just like world's about to get crazy, but
Just
like
yeah,
across the board, like just different topics that are just exciting and full of emotion. Um, so that's kind of my goal. I don't want any slow songs. Nope. Everything's gonna be intense, fiery, you know, make somebody cry, make someone laugh, make someone mad.
Yeah, just emotions to the
Yeah,
max,
yeah.
which I feel like is such a big part of music. Like no matter how the song sounds or what it's about, if it to some degree or somehow doesn't make like a feeling come up, there's inherently something missing there.
Yeah, like people comment all the time, like haters, they're like, "Oh, like this song's making tons of people upset, like you're never gonna make it." I'm like, it's literally the point of music to like make you feel something. Like you don't have to like
Yeah,
it, it can make you mad, but I'm saying something, like it makes
yeah,
these people happy, Like you have to, I don't know. You gotta like just go for it. You can't try to please everyone.
yeah, exactly. Go for it, and hopefully, eventually, again, back to this like delusion. It'll work one day. It'll work somehow.
I hope
The
he's
I like back when I mean when Dua Lipa was bringing it up, and I sort of took it on as a moniker, like this radical optimism, just constantly like until something doesn't work, or until the moment that something bad happens, it's gonna go well and it's gonna be good things.
And it usually does if you have that attitude. I mean,
Yeah,
I think fear, like the fear of being judged is very like if you really think about, okay, if this person judges me or doesn't like me, that's perceived as like, oh, this is bad. This is danger. Like that adrenaline that like when your heart's rushing and you're like self-conscious, it comes from like you think you're like something bad's gonna happen. But when someone doesn't like you, nothing bad happens. Like if you really
yeah,
think about it, like the person will be like, I don't like that person, scroll. And once you can realize what good can happen, like I like this person, I want to come to her show, I want to be a fan, I want to like then it's so much easier to start like living for that rather than being scared of what other people are going to think about you.
yeah.
Um,
It
and I
helps
feel
keep you
like
going,
that's, yeah, like,
and it
okay, what's the worst thing that could happen versus the best thing that could happen? And it's almost always way better things.
yeah, and it's also like I just had this big like realization moment this past weekend because for so long I've had been like really self-conscious out in public,
Yeah.
or like something will happen and I'm like, oh my God, all these people are watching it, and then like I don't know because it was the most random thing and not like something where I was making an effort not to focus on people, but I was just like in a public place and I was like, I really like could not point out anything about anyone in this room to you.
Right.
So and that's the way people feel about me. It's like
Yeah.
something happens and maybe I feel like everyone saw it, but putting myself in their shoes, I have no clue that anything has happened to this person.
My biggest inspiration is like the crazy, like, crackheads at 7-Eleven that I get. Because, like, this man will walk in fully just like missing tooth, hair crazy, outfit crazy, but he walks in with such a sense of confidence that I'm like, yeah, hey,
He
how are
walks in
you?
like it's a
You know?
normal Tuesday, like
Yeah,
nothing's
like,
wrong.
okay, like, I mean, we all have our insecurities, nobody looks in the mirror and they're like, you're perfect. It's like always something that we're insecure about. But like, if you walk in a room knowing your worth, like, knowing, like the crackhead at 7-Eleven, um, then everyone's just gonna like believe you, like it's
Yeah.
the energy you put out. And easier said than done, like there's days I walk into 7-Eleven and I'm like, don't look at me, but then I'm like, you know what? If he can do it, I can do it too.
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course. Awesome. Well, I mean, this has been great. I've had so much fun, but
On
to
that
wrap
note,
things, to wrap things up, I don't know. I mean, a little bit before this, you mentioned that you saw a couple of my interviews on YouTube,
yes.
but every now and then I'll end with a segment called Know Your Stuff, which is a bit like Name That Tune, but I want to just play a couple snippets of your music. And,
Okay.
and the whole thing is one, if you can name it, and then let's just get into like anything that went into the song, anything you want to talk about that maybe we didn't get into in the
Oh,
interview
this is fun.
portion.
I'm gonna bring my dog is, I'm sure you've seen him online too. He's just like sitting here and I'm just, yes, you can be a part of this. Okay.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
Look at that feeling. Anger right away.
Got
Like that's
got it immediately.
So anything about it.
Just yeah, anything about it. What went into it? What's the message?
So
Anything that you want to talk about that we didn't get into?
my producer took a course, I think. I don't know the full, he tells it better. He took a course about like hardcore rock music, and his inspiration was Rage Against the Machine. And mind you, like I'm one of those. I grew up like listening to like 90s and 2000s pop, R&B, hip hop. I could tell you any R&B singer, any rapper. But when it comes to rock music, I'm a little not the smartest when it comes to
Yeah.
90s, 2000s. Okay, that's my preface. So I was like, oh, I wrote a song to that like rock track, like that rock thing that you put on. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like that rock thing. He's like, you mean the Rage Against the Machine one? I'm like, yeah, sure. And he listened, he's like, oh my God, like you just embodied, like, he's like, we gotta put this out. Like, this is your Rage Against the Machine moment. So that's how
Yeah.
that song,
Yeah.
right, Truffle.
Perfect. All right, and then the next one that I have is
It's about time for your billionaire.
yep, yep. Had to put it in there. It's one of my favorites of
One of my
yours.
favorite. That's my second favorite. Or first. One. I love performing that song. That's a great
Yeah.
song to perform because everyone gets hype. That song was my like I what did I write it about? Because it was like I took a story of a friend who had just gone through a breakup and was kind of like making excuses for this person for so long, and then once they broke up, she was like, that guy's the worst, like here's really how I feel, and as one does. And I was like, oh, it's like this girl's in her villain era, and I wrote the song about that. But I really I channeled my inner Eminem rhymes, like the rhyme scheme and like a lot of that, and
Yeah.
so I think that's might be why I like it so much.
Yeah. Awesome. And then the last one that I have here.
Ah,
Another bop.
another bop. I love. Okay, that's my third song to perform live that I really like. I'm not even kidding. That's my third favorite song to perform live. Um, that song was literally so there was an idea to just like, what if we wrote a song around the tick tock of a clock? Like it literally, if you listen, it's at the beginning and the end very clearly. You
Hmm.
hear like that tick, and I was like, let's just write a song to it. And like it was a stupid idea that just turned into a song.
Yeah. Turned into a great song.
Yeah, it's a
But
fun one.
yeah, I mean those are all the of the clips I had. You crushed it. You definitely know your stuff. And I mean that yeah, I mean it seems like I picked well because every single time it seems like those are songs that you enjoyed
I
as
should have
well.
let him play more so people would have been like, oh, like no one even. I'm just kidding.
That's totally fine. That's totally fine. If you want to hear them play more, go look up Patreon, Spotify,
Like,
YouTube, wherever else. She's everywhere. But thank you so much for coming on. I've had a great time, and for a moment to promote, if people are surfing the web, where can they find your wave?
I mean, my most active social media platform is the none other than TikTok. I have two pages on there. Um, Patra, just Patra, and then it's me, Patra. So follow those accounts to get updates. And then my Discord. If you go to my TikTok, the Discord link's in the bio. Or you can go to my website, www.patramusic.com, and you can find links to literally anywhere you want to go on the web. So
Yeah, perfect. I'll leave a link to some of those down below. And thank you again so much for coming on. I can't wait to see what's next for you.
thank you.